So what we did is when we came in is we implemented exactly all the stuff that we mentioned earlier. We saw about 210% increase in store visits month on month because we were able to scale locally and put more money into the locations that bring the business more revenue.
Hello and welcome to the Paid Media Lab podcast. My name is James. I'm the content lead here at Lunio, and in this episode, I'm joined by Teodor Yordanov, Senior Paid Media Director at Booked.media and Marketize Me. Prior to his current role, Teo worked for Dentsu, where he led campaigns for some of the biggest brands in the UK. Teo has managed more than £100 million in ad spend throughout his career to date, consistently delivering profitable growth across both e-commerce and travel sectors. Teo also organised and hosted his own meetup and networking event for performance marketers in Edinburgh earlier this year called SEM Stories, and he's planning to organise more of those events in future. Personally, I'm really glad to have had Teo on the podcast because this isn't the first time we've collaborated together. Back in December last year, I hosted a webinar on branded search campaigns, and Teo was kind enough to let me use and promote the script he created and designed to automate the removal of generic search terms from dedicated branded search and shopping campaigns. Since then, I've had a chance to meet up with Teo in person when he was here in Manchester, and it was then that we started to discuss and plan what we were going to talk about in this episode. So, in the conversation, Teo shares his expert insights on using Google Ads to drive local store visits, a tactic many marketers tend to overlook in favor of online-only strategies. We cover everything from Google's attribution of offline conversions to best practices for Google business profiles, how to get the most out of local inventory ads, and how to overcome common issues with location targeting. If you run paid media for high street retail brands or hospitality businesses or any company that wants to bridge the gap between digital campaigns and real world results, this episode is packed full of advice you won't want to miss. So let's dive in. How are things with you today?
Oh man, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be on the other side of the camera. I've always watched your webinars, your podcasts, and I absolutely love them. It's honestly a privilege just to be part of this here today.
Thanks, mate. And yeah, I really am looking forward to the conversation with you because we've been talking about collabing together for some time now.
Wow.
You were in Manchester a few weeks back and we caught up for a coffee in person. And I remember
Yeah.
back then we were kind of discussing potential topics that we could cover on the podcast. And you said one of your core areas of expertise is using Google Ads to drive increased footfall and local visits to physical stores. So I'm excited to get into all that with you in the episode today. But before we get into that,
Uh-huh.
I also just wanted to highlight to the audience that you've also created some super helpful Google Ads scripts in the past, which some of which we featured on the webinars that you mentioned. So the script that I know we plugged in a webinar in December last year was a script designed to keep generic search terms out of dedicated brand search or shopping campaigns. So could you tell us a bit more about that script and why you decided to put it together?
Yeah, I think that's at that time. This is when everyone just started noticing quite a lot of traffic coming from PMAX with micro scripts. So a lot of people started implementing standard shopping. But the problem is that standard shopping and PMAX at that time they were not working as one as they are just now. So standard shopping started picking up quite a lot of the branded and generic terms. And the whole point of the shopping campaign was to pick up the branded terms. So this script, because you have to constantly analyze what was coming through your search queries, was taking too much time. So when you have this script running in the background, it can literally save you hours and hours of time just plowing through any of the search terms that are not your brand and just exclude them automatically and add them into your negative keyword list. And that I
Yeah,
hope
nice.
helped a lot of people.
Like I know people on the webinar found that super useful, and I think you collectively you say probably thousands of hours of work when you think about all the people that downloaded and applied that script. So I just want to say to anyone that's listening to this episode, we are going to put the link to Teo's script that he just talked about in the episode description. That'll be on YouTube, Spotify, and everywhere else. So if you do want access to that script as well, you can find it in the episode description. But for now, we're going to move on to our main topic for today, which, as I mentioned previously, is all about local store visits, local inventory ads, and how to combine both of those features within Google Ads to maximize sales volume as efficiently as possible. As I mentioned, Theo is a real expert when it comes to this topic, and he has some really impressive case studies to share, which I'm sure we'll get on to later on in the conversation. But before we get there, to start things off, let's get to the basics first of all. So, Tia, what exactly do we mean by local store visits in the context of Google Ads?
First of all, thank you so much for the great words, James. But when it comes to local store visits, right, we would refer to that physical visit to a brick and mortar store, which occurs after the user has interacted with your Google ad. And this is a conversion metric which tends to bridge the digital and the physical environment for those users into one. And they represent two things. First, they are a measurable attribution metric, where Google tracks when someone they clicked on your ad, as I said, later visits your physical shop location. And this is done through various signals, which include, for example, GPS, Wi-Fi data, Google Maps usage, and opt-in location history from the user's mobile devices. But they're also part of Google's online to offline tracking system, which helps businesses understand how their digital marketing efforts would translate to real world foot traffic here. And Google also uses a combination of methods that estimates these visits. So, but we will dive in a lot more detail later on in the webinar about the attribution and measurement of those store visits because it's quite important.
Yeah, 100%. And it does get quite technical when it comes to that. But just to keep it kind of more at a kind of foundational level, if I'm a local business, why should I even bother trying to use Google Ads to drive in-store traffic rather than just focusing on driving online sales if I have an e-commerce platform of the website?
Yeah, James. I think there's a lot of value here that gets often overlooked by businesses. And now think about it. When someone comes to your shop, you've got that wonderful opportunity for your staff to connect with your customers, recommend additional items, and create proper shopping experience, right? So there's quite a powerful about be able to see and touch and try those products before actually buying them. So what is fascinating is how shopping habits have evolved. Now most people do their online research before popping into your shop, right? The Google's data shows that when someone searches on their phone or even on their desktop, right, and they're looking for something for products nearby, about three quarters of them will visit a related business within the 24 hours. So that's a massive opportunity, and a lot of businesses don't realize that. Now, for local businesses, there are also other benefits, not just this one, right? You've already got your inventory that's sitting in your shop, and that needs to move, right? You don't have to worry about your shipping costs if you get to cover these for when customers buy stuff online. And most importantly, every person that walks through your door helps you build your presence in the community in a way that digital just can't match.
Alongside local store visits, we've also got local inventory ads, which are slightly different, but they are kind of important to a holistic strategy if you've got physical stores. So, could you explain to us, Theo, what are local inventory ads and what makes those so effective for e-commerce brands with physical stores?
Local inventory ads basically you have your separate local feed, just the same way that you've got your merchant center feed, but specific to your store, which gives you all the availability of your items at that present location. So when people are searching for a product online and they fall within your proximity of your store, they can see whether you've got that product in physical location and they can come and collect it. So that's in a nutshell what local inventory ads are. But what makes these ads particularly effective is that they bridge that gap between the online shopping and your local availability. So I've already mentioned that when they search online, they can see what products you've got just down the road, and having that thought in their head, wow, okay, this product is available right now. I don't need to wait for a delivery tomorrow. I'm just gonna pop by and pick it up today, and that gives them a really good incentive to come down and have that in-person experience and result in a visit, right? They also give you prime visibility in the Google Shopping tab, When people are searching on Google Shopping, you've got the local filter. So advertisers that don't use local inventory ads, you get a lot of advantage in front of these advertisers, right? So, and another strength I just want to mention is that the detailed local storefront that these ads create, because shoppers can see your in-store inventory as mentioned, but they can also see your opening hours. They can get easy directions to where your business is, and you can even run special in-store promotions, all without leaving Google. So I think that reduces the friction that people would probably have, and makes the store visit much more likely to happen. But these ads don't come without limitations. Yeah, I think that the most significant challenge is that inventory management, because your system needs to feed accurate and real-time inventory data, right? If a customer comes in your store because your ad showed that an item is in stock but it's actually sold out, how do you think you're going to feel? You'll be frustrated, right? So that's why it's important to have a very rigid system in place that can actively show what's available. But and there's quite a lot of setup involved, because you need to create and maintain those local product inventory feeds, verify your locations, and potentially also undergo inventory verifications for that particular location. And for brands that have dozens of locations and thousands of products, this can be a substantial undertaking, right? And finally, I think it's the if we want to talk about attribution here for LIAs, without proper integration, we wouldn't know which products customer bought, and LIAs are in the hands of Google, so we can't scale them because Google decides when to show those ads. But I want to say that this is what people think, and I found a way uh, that you can significantly improve the performance of LIAs, although they're in the hands of Google, and you can actually scale them. But I think that this is for the listeners of the podcast, and whoever's watching now, it's going to be later down the podcast when we're going to go in a little bit more detail on these ones here.
Nice, super helpful. You also mentioned that there are some inefficiencies with location target and maybe some misconceptions about people's idea that local inventory ads, you can't scale them. So could you maybe talk a bit more about those inefficiencies with location targeting and any tools or methods that you've kind of found to help you overcome that and deal with location targeting for inventory ads?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when I talk about inefficiencies here with location targeting, I'm mostly referring to several practical challenges that can waste your budget or even limit your reach, and mostly refer to the radius targeting inefficiencies. Now, when you set a radius around your business, it's a perfect circle, right? But real world movement doesn't happen in a straight line. So people might travel further along major transport routes, for example, less distance in other directions, and with radius, there's the challenge of physical barriers. So you may include areas where they are separated by rivers, motorways, other barriers, whatever reason, terrain is different. So the actual travel time to your store from the postcode is actually a lot longer than you would normally think. So these are the inefficiencies that I want to talk about. And your ideal targeting shape at the end looks more like a distorted blob than a circle. So these inefficiencies mean that standard location targeting would often result in spending budget on people, one, unlikely to visit your store, while potentially missing those that would. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And I believe that you've kind of found a way or a system to kind of overcome this. So could you talk about the tools and the system that you've developed to help people run these campaigns more efficiently?
Yeah, absolutely. I think here is where I get really proud. I think that location targeting layering can be quite powerful. And instead of using simple radius to create, you can create multiple location targets using your postcodes to build a more precise targeting shape that really accounts for those travel patterns that your customers would have. And what I've done personally is I've built a postcode database to on locations with a specific store. So you can start with the radius, right? Then you can see what postcodes would fall within that radius, extract the postcodes within your business, and then I put them into a Google Maps API integration with the Google Sheets, where I can calculate the distance between each postcode to your client's location, business location. And if you have multiple locations, like I've worked with businesses with 10, 15, 20 stores. You need to do that for each of the businesses, get the postcodes and calculate the driving distance for that, because this allows me to analyze uh, what the performance has been so far from Google's matched location data when you go that granular, and see the distance and see how this resonates with the client's goals. Do they meet the client goals? Do they not meet the client goals? But I promise I will share these tools with you so you can share it with the audience. And I hope that this can help someone further down the line if they're looking to implement a similar strategy for the clients. But just one thing is that the brilliant thing about the approach is that you can find the sweet spot in your targeting. So you might discover that certain postcodes that are 15 miles away perform better than the ones that are just 10 miles away, because of factors like we mentioned already: your transport link, your natural terrain, your river that is cutting out a bridge that you need to cross. So, and some postcodes naturally will have a higher conversion rate despite being further away for whatever reason.
Yeah, 100%. So people that are listening to this right now, you're not just going to come away with Tio's script for removing generic brand terms from your search and shopping campaigns. You're also going to come away with a Google sheet that is going to help you calculate these driving distances based on postcodes, which is super useful if you are interested in implementing this strategy. So we're going to get the link that for the Google sheet that Tio just mentioned and put that in the episode description on YouTube and on Spotify and everywhere else where the podcast is going. So be sure to check the episode description for that to get a copy and implement it if you want to try this strategy. I know, Tio, you actually shared this with the LinkedIn community a while ago, and this is another thing that you've invested time in, and as a result, a lot of other people are benefiting and saving themselves a lot of time and headache in the process. So thank you for your contributions to the PPC community, and
I
super
sure hope
helpful.
so.
Yeah, yeah. So one thing, if someone has kind of followed, got your sheet, they've implemented the strategy, they've set things up, what are some of the most effective levers they can pull to then improve performance once the campaign has been running for a while?
Yeah, I think that you need to think about the strategy here, right? The campaign strategy aimed at both store visits and online revenue, because that's your ultimate goal. You want to drive store visits, but also make your sales online. And I found that the most effective approach is splitting your campaigns into two distinct segments, right? The first segment is that it's your local focus campaign, which targets specific postcodes around your stores, and this is where the postcode data analysis we talked about earlier really becomes powerful. For these local campaigns, you will want to enable store visit conversion tracking and implement your custom variable adjustments in your bidding strategy. But if you have more complex data, you can just implement the store visits with dynamic values with all of these tools that I mentioned earlier, such as your CRM or POS integration. And the key here is to optimize in your local campaigns simultaneously for both conversion actions, your online sales and your offline store visits when they've got a value, right? So based on you can assign that value based on your average in-store purchases, which allows the Google algorithm to properly balance those two goals at the end. And the game changer for those local campaigns is local inventory ads. I say that I mentioned that a couple of times, but I absolutely love them, and for the reason that we said earlier. Now, there's the second segment of the strategies, your national campaigns. So they want to target the rest of the country, excluding the postcodes that you have assigned to your local campaigns. So you don't want to have any overlap, okay? And these would focus predominantly on online revenue without any store visits component. What makes this so effective, James, is that the split approach is you can tailor your messaging appropriately, and your budget strategy as well can be adjusted accordingly, because first of all, local campaigns can emphasize that someone, hey, let's visit our London store today, or click and collect today, right? Something that your national campaigns, the rest of the country cannot offer. So it's ultimately changes your whole strategy. But your national campaigns, on the other hand, your national ads will be emphasizing faster shipping, online only promotions, anything that you find relevant for your business online. And also, your budget can differ based on your goals. So, here is the winner. I told you that local inventory ads cannot be scaled, but this is the way in order to scale your local inventory ads, because you will be focusing only on the locations around your store, your business location. And when you put higher budget, you'll be able to show a lot more of your beautiful product that you've got in store and people can come and buy, and you can generate that incredible experience for people coming in.
Nice target ROAS. So definitely one to note if you are gonna implement this strategy. So Theo, I'm gonna move on to this will be the final question, but I know you've been doing this a lot. You kind of specialize in this. So it'd be good if we could close out the podcast with a real world example of a case study that you've worked on where you kind of implemented a lot of the things that we've been talking about today. You saw good results. And if you could talk us through that story and what made it work.
Yeah, so as I said, I've already been able to implement this across quite a few businesses. The beauty of that strategy is that no matter the industry, because we've done it with furniture business that's got multiple stores. We've done it with pet supply, with the pet supply business as well. That they've got probably about I think that they've got 17 locations on the pet supplies and 15 on the furniture. It doesn't matter the business, because it brings you the same results. Now, what we've been able to achieve, because that retailer, as you know, for example, furniture, some people really want to go and have a feel about the furniture. So you would expect that quite a lot of the sales would happen naturally in store, and that particular retailer was seeing about, I think, 65 70% of the revenue was coming through their stores, because quite a lot of people were going in, and their online sales were suffering, but they didn't have the split into the local and the national campaign, so they couldn't really drive that footfall, and they couldn't measure how how their online activity was impacting the store visits. So what we did is, when we came in, is we implemented exactly all the stuff that we mentioned earlier. We split the campaign into two. We did the local postcodes targeting. We checked how long the driving distance is, and we focused on what makes sense for that business. And I think that we saw about 210% increase in store visits month on month, because we were able to scale locally and put more money into the locations that bring the business more revenue, while also reducing the sales for the budget, sorry, for the national campaigns. And that just exploded and increased the efficiency, because we're also able to cut from inefficient postcodes through constant downloading of the postcodes and reanalyzing the data and re-optimizing. And I thought that this has been an incredible results that we've seen.
Nice. Yeah, super impressive stuff there in the results that you mentioned. And yeah, in the interest of time, we're going to leave it there. But I want to say thank you so much for joining us today, Theo. I think people are going to find this strategy really useful, especially coming away with your Google Sheets formulas and maps for driving distances. People are going to find that useful. And I think people can implement this. It's super actionable and clearly beneficial from the results that you've just described in that case study for the furniture store. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to mention or let people know about?
No, man, honestly, it's been a pleasure being here. People will be more than welcome if they want to reach out to me and send me a DM and ask me questions on the implementation. I'll be more than happy to guide them and show them some support articles or anything that they are wondering about, like POS integrations, or sending offline conversion data and so on.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks again, Theo. And hopefully I'll catch you again in Manchester, or maybe if I'm in Edinburgh, I'll catch you up there. But yeah, been great to chat to you. Great to have you on.
It will be a pleasure, man. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of the Paid Media Lab. Thank you for tuning in. If you found it helpful, hit the subscribe button to get the next episode as soon as it's released. Subscribing costs nothing. It only takes a few seconds to do, but it makes a huge difference to us because it enables us to continue booking the best possible guests and delivering you great content. In the meantime, if you're looking for more free guides, tips, and tools, head to lunio.ai and click on the resources tab in the nav bar. And lastly, if you know any other marketers who'd find these strategies helpful, please do tell them about the show, and I'll see you in the next episode.